Welcome to Warblog. Today we're going to look at this white flags operation, Iraq. Quite a simple game. No objectives. Okay. So essentially, the Iraqis are just trying to clear this area of white flag units. I'm a bit vague on as to who white flags are, but I think it's basically just a sort of rebranding of some Islamic State elements. So they're not really trying to capture the places. I mean, you could sort of capture them, but essentially it's pretty simple and straightforward. Obviously there's the sort of front line there, but what you'll notice is that the task force or the battle group is there. I mean, obviously you might want to leave something behind, and so really it's sort of what you do with that. I mean, you could sort of go like that and force a line that way, or come around this way, whatever you whatever you sort of want, really. Let me reload. Now, obviously these elements are sort of doubled up mostly, and so here you could find that these units are a little exposed. I have sort of considered that. But what that would mean is that these units would then have to sort of strike out at that straight off, committing a lot of what you've got down here. Now these units, we don't know what they're going to do, but they might sort of come up here. These units might want to sort of, forward thinking. You might sort of think, well, these units are going to sort of, try and present a reserve line along here, so they're not necessarily going to sort of commit themselves in any direction, but it's up to you as to what you want the white flag units to do. Alternatively, you might want to sort of, on your first turn, to group these together. That might be a good idea. You might be able to do it. Sort of thinking aloud here. But you might be able to move him 2 hexes and move there, and move him 1 hex there, giving you a stack of 6, which means that these units won't be able to attack. So, tragedy narrowly averted. Obviously, you would stack up with that one as well, creating a double up there. Maybe sort of committing a little more of this to sort of preserve this line, etc, etc. So I'm just going to sort of jump in now and sort of follow that strategy through. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this one stage at a time, and then I'm going to stop, but I might not really get that far because I don't intend on playing through fully. But basically, what I'm sort of implying by that, what I mean is, I'm going to spend the first turn building the integrity of this sort of southern front line and taking this unit out here, but not doing anything more, and building the integrity there. So basically building this line in a way that will allow me then to sort of almost start the game from scratch, or from fresh, or from new. But so what I'm saying is I will be attacking this unit, but not this one, or any of these. So with that in mind, let's see what we can do here. Well, before I do that, that gives me 1.2. So it might be better off moving there. Yep. So, got the same sort of stacking arrangements. We've got some mechanised units in there. It's kind of difficult to know exactly what I should do, but I'll move that to there. So we can't stop these irregulars from slipping through the gaps, no matter what I try. What I want to do is move this one to there and one of these units to there, but I'm not sure whether they'll both get there. Let's give it a go. Oh no, there's 2 units. Oh no, there's only 1 unit in there. Okay, so we go there. Yep, so we managed to do that, but he'll be on 0. And yep, so we managed that. That gives us a sort of nice line, as I said, that I'm trying to achieve there. Obviously these units are currently sort of isolated. There's some rockets, which is worth bearing in mind. Now, I'm not sure what I want to do with the rockets. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to not fire the rockets first of all, but I'm going to engage here. Now I'm not going to use these rockets. Well, there's 2 in there, so I only need 14. So that's 8. Now his movement will be compromised, so I'm going to have to put him in there. 9, 10, 11, 12, but they've got artillery, well they've got tanks in there, so that might push it up, plus the surround 10%. So I'm going to try and go through with that attack like that. I think it should be a 6 or 7 to 1. Yep, and I push them both back, pushing them up to depression 2. So already I've achieved my objective now of creating that sort of front line from which is a little more secure. There's nothing sort of vulnerable from which I can then start to sort of push my front line forward. There's nothing vulnerable, so there's really nothing to fear from any of these units. But you know, it's easy to say that, because if you just leave anything accidentally on its own, it can suddenly become vulnerable. But they are now behind a river. So what have we got here? Now what it might be worth doing is, well, doing what I sort of said initially and trying to push these down, but I could maybe sort of drive this way and really take this river hex here. I mean this river junction, if I'm on the other side of that. So if I explain that with my little drawing tool, what I'm thinking is putting myself in a position where I can sort of drive through this way, separating the north from the south like that. So that's opposed to the other way, perhaps sort of pushing along here and just coming down like that. I mean, you know, there aren't too many ways that I could do this, but with the former, I have 2 pockets and 2 fronts. With the latter, I really only have 1 front. Although it's quite long, I have, you know, one defensive front and then one offensive front line that is in action, and that might be the better way to do it. It's sort of the harder way to do it, and I think I'm actually going to try that. Now, none of these are objectives, so I don't know what they're going to try and do, but what I'm going to do here is push this and this there. Now he will be able to, he will have to retreat to there if I'm assuming I'm going to win this battle, which is not ideal, but at least it allows me to control the direction or his potential position next turn further away, as opposed to sort of exploiting through here and just being a pain. So, however, what I think I also want to do, let's see how this goes. I don't want to make too big a meal out of all of this. Oh right, we used up all our turn, because that's interesting. Right, fighting across that river is going to be difficult, and I'm not going to do it. They moved because they went over the river. All their movement was used up. That's the thing about these rivers, and that's what makes this game slightly interesting from that point of view. If we can keep them across that river, we stop them from being able to exploit. So that's one thing that's worth bearing in mind. What I just sort of said there about exploiting, he can't do that. I mean, ordinarily he might, or he's only got a 3 movement anyway, so they're quite limited. But even if they did, he would stop going across that river. So keeping them across that river is important, and you know, that retreat there was quite significant because it pushed him across the river. So all he could do next time, at best, is move there or there. He wouldn't be able to sort of move all the way through there. Plus, he's just infantry, not mechanised, not motorised. So it's all looking pretty good. But obviously, I don't want to sort of commit an attack. I think it's sort of like 50% over this river, you know, or something like that. It's quite difficult. So they would be a much, you know, lower, and these obviously as all moved up. So what I'm going to do, I want to make sure that I keep my rockets. So there's 2 lots of rockets there. It's difficult. How much of this is moved? Oh, thought I'd messed up there. And both my rockets are going to go into there with this a lot of support. I'm not going to give them a chance to get those sort of odds against me. I'm just going to use the rockets now on here. The reason I'm using the rockets here is because they've already been depressed, and so I'm hoping to sort of build on that. 0.85. So nothing too big, but it all adds up. 3.2. I don't think there's much more I can do over here. That was 0, so that's the end of that turn. So, just to recap, I mean, I'm now on the white flag's turn, but I have actually achieved my objective, and I did it in 1 turn, so quite quickly, of securing my whole front line so that it's nice and safe, and pushing forward like that. I mean, I did sort of specify that maybe I wasn't going to move across the river, so maybe I shouldn't have actually moved across the river, because I didn't sort of intend that, but it wasn't sort of an offensive move across the river, it was just a positioning move, and I think it was fair enough, because you know, otherwise I would be, you know, waiting for another turn to cross the river and before I can do the attack. So these can attack now, but obviously it's not their turn. But what do the white flags want to do? Now they are stuck a little because they can't exploit across this river, so that's quite an important feature, but the river isn't really present here, but their movement is still limited, So these three units, I think, are probably naturally going to want to form a defensive force for south of this river line, and a falling force like that. So that's probably what they're going to try and do. Just so I can maybe make that a bit clearer. These units are going to form a line. Well, obviously they won't be able to get so far, but basically going to form a line, maybe. So I don't want to fall back just yet because I don't have to. But these units won't be able to move so far forward. They're going to really be able to move one. So I can almost sort of, if I hold a line here, I'll possibly get attacked. If I fall back here, I've got a turn's grace, so I can keep falling back, try and hold this line, you know, each turn moving back one hex, and bit by bit. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turns. You know, so they're fighting that sort of game, looking for an opportunity to sort of counter strike, but obviously they can't. You know, the best they'd be able to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, against sort of a stack like that would be a 1-to-1, and they might end up doing something like that because they do have this up here, but that still wouldn't change it from a 1-to-1. So it'd be like 8-to-6. You know, they don't have the movement. So let's see what we can do. So they've positioned themselves there. Right, well, how far can we move in this desert anyway? They can move 2. I think I'm going to hold there. And what I'm going to try and do is push this flank a little. Well, let's get across this river. Now, do I commit these north or south of the river, I wonder? I think I can give myself an edge. So I'm trying to decide whether or not I should go over this river here and become a pain, or stay on this side, keeping myself clear of these units and creating quite a solid force to sort of fight and antagonise this smaller block of units. But if I do move into here, it does, you know, if I don't contest this hex, this gives this stack complete free rein to start pushing this way. Whereas if I move there, he's going to be forced almost to stay on this side of the river and to contend with whatever I'm doing, but he'll probably just move there somehow and then attack into here, forcing me back. I think what I'm going to do is a compromise, because the whole point of irregulars is they are semi-expendable because they do retreat. They're not expendable in a sense, but they're designed primarily, one of the main features of the irregular units in their design is to create a blocking force. In particular, some of these Afghan scenarios where they, you know, they retreat after every battle along these sort of mountain passes. So if I move one there, that sort of, you know, because their offensive force is not the key, it's their presence that's the key. So that's going to irritate the Iraqis. But here, I'm not sure. I mean, they're pretty much going to get 7-to-1s, and it's no matter what. Now, my reasoning there, it just means there's so many more things that the Iraqis have to do, considering that whatever they do, they're probably going to be at 7 to 1. So it's basically that they have to do 1, 2, 3. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 attacks with whatever units they've got, just to deal with these units. They'll probably be able to sort of, be quite effective. But if they fail, and they, you can only do so many attacks. But if they fail on any, let's see what happens anyway. So that's sort of the strategy. So now we've got these units down here threatening the flank, which is a pain. And we've got this unit here. See, this unit is now slowing down our potential to advance on this unit. So this unit's probably not going to get attacked because we're too busy dealing with that one. And I doubt we'll be able to sort of attack and move. Now, I could move there and then attack into there, but then that would leave that zone of control empty. I can't split because that would leave them vulnerable. So I'm going to have to do an attack here, which is going to save this unit. He's not going to be attacked. This unit will probably be able to move here and attack there, possibly forcing him in to move there or there. So we'll be able to move that, but this front line is probably going to end up looking like that. Whereas if that unit hadn't moved there, it would probably end up looking like that. So let's see. Now up here, I really want to move that unit out of the way. Here we'll have to retreat into Cham-e-Suwara. Which he did. And I'm going to have to move him to there. And the rockets, I've got to move them before I fire them. They're going to move into that hex as well, but I just want to, before I do that, I want to think about it. Now, see, they stalled me now. I can't really fight that unit because I don't want to be fighting across that river, but I will just take this unit out. I imagine I'll be able to push him back easily. I won, but it was only a DR with a dice roll of 12, and that's all the movement up. I can't move forward. So they've maintained their front line, but at what cost? Here, I'm going to attack this unit. I'm only making sure I'm doing high odds attacks, which I think is what what is happening in a lot of these places anyway. To limit their own losses. We could do more. So we're not going to attack across that river because we used our attack. This has one unit. I could do an attack, but it'd be a lot less. And now, because of the situation here, I'm really limited on what I can attack here. So I'm going to take this unit here out. Again. Oh no, I don't want to use that one. So it's easily overkill. And I could probably do it with one of them, but I don't want to take the risk of doing anything undersized because I don't have to. So I've got a DE there, so that's pushed them back like that. But I've still got some offensive capability, so I will push against this one. I might be able to get 3 attacks out of this because I just simply haven't moved. Look at that. If you don't move, you can do 3 attacks. So we push them right back. This stack's all used up, so this unit should be able to attack both of these. So we'll attack this unit first. Okay. And then this, so it's all gone perfectly. So maybe they shouldn't have, but the thing is I have had to leave everything stacked up. The thing that the white flags didn't really anticipate is the fact that because I'm so mobile, I can afford to do multiple attacks. So it was pushing him in a situation where it's saying, okay, come on, you've got to do multiple attacks, without really taking into account the fact that I can afford to do multiple attacks because I'm mobile, and they're not. So we pushed the whole line back, and none of those, we got one DR, which was about as bad as it could get, and it didn't really affect things. So we pushed that whole line back into a sort of almost a form of chaos. And they've got some movement. So I think who is the well, so I'm going to move there. And do we have any space? Yep, and extra capacity. Well, that was a DR, but it pushed him back. Now we'll have to do some route checks. Now, do we want to fire our rockets on that or something else? Let's go for it. Oh well, it would have been better off firing at something else, but it's pushed his depressions up. And that's it. So it wasn't quite what I planned. We sort of pushed the line more in the centre there, pushing more that way. And really I want to be sort of sweeping up around here and coming back down here now. But it's a solid front line, nice and complete, no weak spots. Their limited mobility means they can't really exploit too much, so it's now the white flag's turn. Well, I think they're probably going to be thinking that their strategy was a little flawed, and they're beginning to realise perhaps that they can't really, I mean, well, the thing is that defence was valid. The thing that it didn't take into account, in fact, it was valid, except what they should have done, they should have kept some space away. And now that wouldn't necessarily have stopped them, but it could reduce 3 attacks down to 2 attacks. So the thing to do is so what I'm saying here is to somehow force them to advance. Now this won't be able to advance very far, so if we fall back now to sort of a line like that, perhaps, we're not going to get attacked next turn, or at least only once, and only by units that can do that attack. Now, bear in mind that these units are designed, you know, in their scope as just defensive units. This was never really designed to be part of the offensive line. The reason we doubled up there is because we moved some of our task force down here and some of our task force up here, but this unit is really not supposed to be sort of moving that far forward. And so we'll be losing these sort of more static units, and I think there's one in here, from their forward advanced line as we fall back. That said, the offensive line is not down here, so we might want to sort of actually move a lot more of this stuff this way to engage the main offensive force, because these units are really not going to move more than 1 hex. So if they're going to get there next turn, as long as we've got this line complete, everything else can be used to better effect elsewhere, possibly. We've got this forward advanced unit here, so I think the thing to consider there is it a threat? It's armour and mechanised, total of 8. If we could get 8 units around it, we could get sort of like a 1-to-1. If we could get enough units around it, we could get a 1-to-1. But mobility, we don't have that sort of extended mobility. But we could get that hex, that hex. Let's just see what we could do. Let's reload. We could go to there, 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 and there. This would be the big thing rolling on a 1-to-1, and we could take out that whole stack. It just goes to show that there's no such thing as invulnerability, but it's a risk. Are they prepared to take that? But the reward is immense. So again, they failed because they were a bit too impetuous and pushed forward, putting them at risk. It doesn't mean it's a great risk, but it's certainly a risk, especially when it's a numbers game like this. So, let's do it. We'll leave him. So we're forming just these 2 units, everything else is going north into there. He's going to stay there to sort of present at least sort of an inkling of that line. Although, to be quite honest, it's probably better falling back there. Because they're not going to be able to exploit, but we're on the other side of the river. But if they cross that river, they'll be able to attack, so let's move there, and let's see what we can do. Ah, look at that, he's not in the action. Let's see. 1-to-2. Look at that. That's because they had been attacked with rockets. If I put that other unit in there, that would have done it. That would have been a 1-to-1 and a die roll of 2. I don't know what that. Oh, an exchange. But the thing is, again, I keep saying this, and it's, it never really gets too old, although it can get a bit, a bit forgotten. This represents a major counter-strike by the white flags, whatever they're called, against the Iraqi units. Iraqi units embarrassed by major white flag counter-strike, northeast of Kami Shul. Fortunately, the Iraqis repulsed the attack, capturing, a certain number of vehicles, but it wasn't a sort of a rout. It's a standoff, really. Fortunately, the Iraqis were able to stand their ground, although they were unable to sort of really achieve any momentum against the white flags, and found themselves in a position where they're having to sort of now deal with a rather complicated situation, etc., etc. There are headlines here that are more, you know, quite significant. It's not just a sort of like a, you know, a 2 dice roll. Something significant has happened. The white flags obviously are quite disappointed. It's put themselves in a fairly compromised position, but you know, they're designed for that sort of compromise because they're irregulars. They're going to try and run away, but that was pretty much their big. That's pretty much about as good as it gets. And if this unit had been in there, that could have worked. However, there's a small possibility that they could try it again because they've now got more units that have crossed this river. It would only ever be possibly a 1-to-1, but would the Iraqis allow that to happen? And I don't think they will. Now, down here, we've obviously got 2 lots of infantry, and we're going to move them forward, the 1 hex that we can. So we've committed some of these mechanised units, but because this unit is quite slow, that's as far as he can move, which we anticipated, so they can't attack us this turn. So that fallback has worked. Here, it's an untidy situation. We're going to push these units across the river whilst we can. See, what I sort of want to do is not allow him to retreat there. Okay, if I move this, if they do retreat there, I can attack there and possibly deal with it. DE, yep. But he retreated there, which is important. Okay. Now we've got a large stack of units coming across there. Depression 4, depression 6.8. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to fire my rockets into this stack and hopefully then move them across this river here. I'm hoping to get a rout on one of these units at least. Yes. Okay. And he's on a 5, but I think our rocket unit would be better off on this stack of 3. Yeah. And then, hopefully, well, that's it. So that wasn't brilliant because now I either fired or I moved. These rockets don't seem to have any in between on that, and I don't want to leave them on their own. Bit of a risk here, and what are we going to do here? Should have maybe saved my rockets for that. Yeah, he's gone in the wrong direction. But, it doesn't matter, he's out of the frying pan into the fire, so to speak, because I've still got mechanised units that can work here. And he's at depression 5. Well, half. He's now at depression 7. I'll have to deal with him. he was eliminated because there were already 2 in there. And I think what we're going to do is try and consolidate this northern sector. We've sort of gone in the wrong direction, but he even moves there. He won't get past that. He can move there or there, so he'll probably move away, possibly across this river. This is the only problem. We might be able to get him with the artillery rockets next time, but it's going to really tie this unit up. But we've got a little bit of movement down here. I think we're going to try and push this, try and get that. It's a small chance because I've only got 1 attack, but it's worth half. I could do it 2. 1 against him. He's only depression 1. I'm going to push them both against that. Because I want to push his depressions up. He's not worth much at 5 at the moment. He'll recover a little bit, but so that's that. So we're really slicing through them, but you know, that was chaos. I don't think they really have the ability to try and do what they just did again. But what we sort of not really done is prevent them from doing it. And there's only one way to do that, and that would be to move one of these units over here. Which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I'm going to do it, and I'll explain why in a second. Because they can't get to these rockets. I mean, even if he uses this unit as a 70% reduction, he won't be able to do much. We'll see. But obviously they've lost all their movement now. Okay, I'm going to just do 1 more turn, I think, so I notice the time's getting on. Well, let's just see what they can do. I don't think they're going to get any bonus. I'm not even going to try and calculate it, just do it, see what happens. 1 to 4, attacker eliminated. Yeah, I mean, that was sort of as you might expect. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I just did it because I wasn't sure whether or not they would still get 5 times, 0.3, which would have been, whatever. But they clearly didn't. Or did they? What were the numbers? Yeah, 0.3, which is what they were on, so they didn't get 5 times that. Which would have been 1.5 versus 2, which would have been a 1 to 2, so they're on the 1 to 4, but they got a bad dice roll. So it could have gone better. I mean, you can always get something like an exchange on a 1 to 4. I don't think you can get a DR, but that was a real long shot. But the thing is, they can't get that hex. They can't surround this. They can't do the thing that they sort of might have thought they or tried to do before. This is heavily depressed. So I think we're just going to try and push this line back as far as possible. These units are obviously going to commit to their actions. I'm just going to move them there and there, but I just did it. So that's that. So they're falling back. So we're going to make this pretty much the last turn. I mean, I think it's pretty clear we're going to sort of roll through it all. I've done it like that because they won't, I'm pretty sure they won't be able to really do much. I mean, they could, in theory, as it stands at the moment, go down there, but I'm going to attack there first, so hopefully yep, half. It's not brilliant, but we should have enough. Oh, not brilliant, but we didn't have enough. That was an embarrassment because they actually got an exchange there. I'm not sure they had any exchanges yet. I think they had an exchange before, so that was going up against the bulk of that force. He's at 2, 0.5, 0.7. Well, we can definitely at least try this one. So that's where I should have moved him to stop that. And here, again, these units are not really that heavily damaged. We'll probably only get another 3 to 1 here. But let's just do it. Five to 1 and a DE, because there's only 2 of them as opposed to this stack of 3. That was just too much. So stacking up in 3s is quite good for the white flags, and you know, there's this gap here narrows down. That's going to be more of a potential. But we'll have our rockets next turn, so no more rivers to cross. So we'll be able to roll forward with that. But I'm not going to do any more. I mean, it's definitely falls into the category of another interesting game. I always say that, but you never really know how it's going to go, and I must admit that, you know, it's not sort of like really exciting, but it's all about sort of, you know, drawing into relatively minor situations, you know, the full complexities of what you can do, and that's what I like. It's that sort of game, you know. It forces you to think like that. I mean, you know, to achieve your objectives without making those sorts of mistakes, and it's sort of like counting, you know, your victory on the mistakes you made. And the Iraqis made 2 mistakes by getting encircled. You know, they sort of lost a lot of victory points for that, and also for making this attack there with and failing, you know, losing victory points for that, because that shouldn't have happened. But then again, we gained some victory points. We've not really left anything too vulnerable, but it's going to be worth doing the next turn. And I'll tell you why. How far can these people move? Right, it's going to be worth doing the next turn, even if he does do one thing. I mean, they're always in for spoiling attacks. Will the Iraqis regret this? One to 1. So they were attacking. They didn't get their bonus. I wonder why they didn't get their bonus. Why didn't they get their bonuses? They're only at 2.2. Because the defence was a total of 2, which is under 5, so they should have gone up to 15. It should have been 7 to 1, and that should have been, would have been 11, so it would have been 5 to 1. Should have been a big attack. They are irregulars. Maybe it's because they're against rockets. I don't know. That should have been. should have gone up in the multipliers. I'll have to look into that, which means I probably won't. Anyway, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go any further. I mean, they obviously put themselves in a dodgy situation now. They could have lost the rockets. It's 51 minutes, but yes, it's sort of interesting because you can do things like that, and you know, the white flag can really sort of accept, you know, as many losses as they feel fit, because they're going to lose anyway. But obviously, their way that what they're trying to do is to achieve as minimal losses and get inflicting as maximum damage. Whereas the Iraqis, they just don't want to receive any damage. So every bit of damage is worth like 5-10-fold, you know, the effectiveness, etc., etc. But interesting how, you know, it has fallen back along those lines. You know, sort of third, fourth turn, and we've gone back. You know, like that. So if you feel that you can do better, or you want to have a crack at that anyway, you can sign up and play it as many times as you want. And have as much fun as I just had there. It's well worth the money. I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.